Assalamu alaikum and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, as we're getting ready for round 8 of the season here at the circuit Paul Ricard, France. Currently leading the championship, so I guess without any further ado, let's head straight in for qualifying. Well, to start us off then here at our first lap of Paul Ricard, have to put your braking point into turn 1, kind of brake in the middle of those two curves and turn it in nice and early before you even see the opening for the corner. Be careful as you put the throttle in through 2 and now make your way down into 3, brake at about 80 meters, turn it in and now try to feed the power on. We lose a lot of time to Verstappen there, just not carrying enough speed. Drop it down to first temporarily and now short shifting up through the gears, nice and easy on the throttle as it's very easy to run wide, which will compromise your entire run onto this back straight. We're in 6th place right now, which isn't too bad because we can gain a lot of time in the final sector. Get ready for your braking point, brake at about 90 meters into 3rd gear, use up all the curb, and now quickly down into 2nd and now back up through the gears. Careful with the back end, very easy to lose it, and we're already back into 1st place, which is exactly what we want to see. Heading into, I believe this is a turn 10, completely flat. You can use a little bit of a curb, and now trail braking in to 11. Just a little blip of power as we drop it back into 4th, and now feed the power in through what feels like such a long right-hander. Now this is arguably the trickiest corner on the track. So easy to drift wide on the exit. We get the power back on, but we drop it down to 2nd, now 3rd. Get ready for the penultimate corner. Trail braking all the way through, dropping it down into 3rd gear. Sometimes you can get away with just dropping it into 4th, but down to 1st for the final corner. Back on the power we go, and across the line to complete our lap. But it's only going to be 3rd place, unfortunately. That being said, though, we're on the 2nd row of the grid, so we should be able to get a good run, and 1,000th of 2nd, so could have been different so easily. That being said, though, we should be in for a fantastic race, and this is the last race before we hit some of the tracks that I have really done a lot of practice at, and I'm talking about the likes of Austria, Silverstone, Germany, as I have hit them at the Valence League, but we have to focus on the race. Now, we're starting in 2nd, as I think Leclerc had a grid penalty, but we'll have to check at the end. 5 red lights, and away we go. We actually get a decent initial getaway, but we just get too much wheel spin in the 2nd phase. Up into 6th gear, and we've got a Ferrari on our inside. We brake quite early, but we can hold it around the outside of turn 1. And we are back up into 2nd place, and we can just focus on hunting down Verstappen. We've got 5 laps to do it, so enough time. Braking very early for turn 3 and pull it back across for 4. And let's just look to hunt down the Red Bull drive. It's just going to be all about keeping it nice and smooth, putting in some consistent laps, and seeing what we can do. As always, no setup, so can make things a little bit trickier. We're already closing into Verstappen a lot down the back straight, but we won't have a go just yet. We drop it into 3rd, and let's look to get a really good run through the chicane, and we seem to get a fantastic run as we pop it up into high, rich fuel mix, and down the inside as we make our way into turn 10. Flat out as always, very, very easy flat, turn 10, and into 11 as usual, just a trail braking as we drop it down into 5th, now 4th, and pull it back across for 12. Verstappen is still close to us, but now we have a clear air, and we can just look on pulling out this gap at the front as we run a little bit wide on the exit, but that's fine. DRS won't be enabled this lap, so we have a bit of time to pull a nice lead to Verstappen. We drop it down into 1st gear, once again running wide on the exit. We pop it up into overtake, as we do have a fair bit of fuel available to us. Into turn 1, dropping it down to 4th. This time we do get the exit fairly nicely, and now on to the curbing as we feed the power in. Careful not to lose a back end. And let's try to get to turn 3 or 4, depending on how you look at it, right for once. We drop it down into 3rd. It's all nice and neat. We haven't had any wheel spin, anything like that. And now as we feed the power back on through the long right hander, we pull it back over to the right to get the best possible run onto the back straight. We run a little bit wide, but I think that's fine. don't even think on strict rules that would give us a time penalty. But get ready to spot our braking points for the chicane nice and late, about 70 to 60 meters, as we throw it into the left-hander, now through the right-hander, up through the gears, use as much revs as possible, there's no chance of wheel spin, as we are already past the curb. We're on for a purple lap as we use as much track as possible, as we take the line of least resistance through 10 into 11, using as much curb, dropping it down through the gears into 4th. We run a bit wide, that will cost us a bit of time in the back end. Just wants to kind of squirm a little bit through 12, drop it into 2nd, as I mentioned, probably the hardest corner on this track, alongside turns 1 and turns 3, in my opinion. Anyway, up to 4th, and now quickly back down to 1st. We have a bit of a lock-up on our front right. Ideally, we probably would turn the brake bias down just a little bit towards the rear, just to minimize that lock-up potential. But we set a faster lap, but Vettel instantly quicker than us. So it's time to get our heads down. We can't let the AI keep up with us, can we? So knock out the ERS23 and bring it back down as we approach the technical part of Sector 1. Down into 2nd gear as we go over the curve, back up to 3, 4, quickly as we drop back down to 1st, short shifting up the gears into 4th. Put it back over to the right, already 2 tenths up, if not more, through Sector 1, onto the back straight. Again, we've got a lot of fuel available to us, so let's just use most of it. So we'll drop it back down to standard and into none as we enter the chicane. Once again, down to 2nd, you can use a bit of curb. Flat out now, maybe a little lift over the curb if you're not feeling too confident. Still 2 tenths up as we make our way into the 3rd sector, as always, flat out into the right hand. And this race so far just hasn't been challenging at all. We drop it back down into 4th, and it's just all about making sure we keep it on the track. And you can see there's a massive gap actually from the Red Bull of Maximilian Verstappen to what I believe is a Racing Point, and I'm going to guess that is Sergio Perez. So not quite sure what's happened behind, because there's a Red Bull, a Ferrari and a Mercedes all missing from the front group, so not sure if there was an incident of sorts. But we come across the line to set a new fast lap of a 1:34.8. And now into turn 1, nice and late on the brakes. We get most of the curb, but we run a little bit wide. Use up all the curb through turn 2, as we do run wide on exit. That would be an invalidated lap time if we had strict rules on. But we are on regular, so we can abuse that just a little bit. We pull the car back over to the left into the tight right-hander of turn 6. Through 7 again. It's not exactly flat. Maybe it's flat if you get it perfectly right, but we're not perfect, so we do have to have a lift, as 8 always going to be flat. And now, now coming into 8, slow it right down so you make your way into turn 9. Again, it's just more of the same. We've got a massive gap to Vettel, and not too much really to say, as we find another 2 tenths in the 2nd sector. So we're just improving and building upon it. And I'm not going to lie, currently it's feeling like maybe I need to turn up the difficulty a notch once again. We've gone through some of our harder tracks of the season, and I'm referring to the likes of Baku, Azerbaijan, and now we really seem to be having a pretty big advantage over the AI. So maybe I will have to turn things up just a little bit to make things more challenging. Not gonna lie, next up is 90. If we get to 100 by the end of the season, that would be really good. And honestly, I'm scared heading into Austria and Silverstone, because as I mentioned, I've done Valence League there, and well, they're probably my 2 strongest tracks on the calendar, alongside maybe Russia. France will probably be up there if I actually had practice here, and maybe Spain would have been up there as well, but we've already passed Spain. And the thing is, I've done so many 50% races that I'm just super confident. So maybe we're just going to blitz the AI. The other thing with the likes of Austria and Silverstone somewhat is the default setup is actually pretty good. So we've hit tracks like China, like Monaco, like Azerbaijan as well, where the default setup isn't that great, and going from a default setup to a custom setup is around about a second a lap, maybe more. At the likes of Austria, it's not even half a second. It's actually pretty close, and if anything, it's just about stability and it helps a little bit with it turning at points. So it is going to be scary when we do get to Austria, without a doubt. That being said, only 3-4 corners remaining of the French GP. Down to second gear, and get ready for turns 15 and 16, I think they are. Down into third gear, and now drop it into first for the final time. We run a little bit wide and we lose the back end trying to go for a new fastest lap. Will we be able to do it? Yes, I think we just about managed it. But another win in our career mode, and we're starting to look very, very racy indeed. And there we are on the top step once again. And there we go. 5 seconds in front. Oh, is that 6 seconds? 5 seconds up. What a race. And let's just take a look at our lap times. Constantly improving every single lap. And we lost the back end through that final corner. So there was probably another 10th there. And in the driver's standings, let's just take a look, shall we? 40 points up now on Charles Leclerc, who's 3 points up on Sebastian Vettel. But that's all that we have time for. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.